Hello, my name is Juan. I want to share with you the story of my very good friend and partner, Hooman Asbaghi. Hooman is an accomplished inventor and medical device innovator holding multiple U.S. patents and safety needle technologies who gained notable attention for winning a $61.5 million jury verdict in 2016, as seen in Asbaghi versus Nidegger. He also served as principal CEO of HBA Medical Group and as CEO of MMI Medical, focusing on innovative safety technologies for needles, catheters, and blood collection devices. This video breaks down a complex legal and personal narrative spanning over 3 decades involving corporate fraud, alleged betrayal, network anomalies, hackings, and ongoing disputes. As someone who's been closely involved, I'll unfold the reviewed evidence, first-hand details that initially seemed overwhelming, as I'll share my own verification process turns skepticism into a deeper understanding. My goal is to make this intricate case comprehensive and easy to follow, whether you are reviewing it for professional reasons or simply to understand the full picture. My connection to Hooman began in early 2022, during a time of significant personal transition for me. I've been living as a digital nomad in Medellin, Colombia for a few months, enjoying the social scene and nightlife, eventually got together with some friends, and we got a beautiful home in the mountains hosting gatherings at our hillside. Unfortunately, through some poor decisions in who we invited, we fell victim to an armed robbery. I lost nearly everything, including critical crypto assets related with my trading background. You can briefly see me in this video next to the guy in the boat hat, the guy in the white shirt. One of the robbers came behind me, put a gun to my head, and told me to get on the ground. It was a very low point for me. My world felt like it was collapsing, and I was quietly rebuilding, focusing on networking to get back on my feet without letting on how precarious things were. Amidst the aftermatch, I formed valuable connections with Michael Torres and Melissa Rojas. Michael, whose family was well connected to the government and offered assistance in tracking down lead in the incident, while Melissa opened doors with her ties to jewelers, influencers, and figures in the music industry. Together, they introduced me to the social circles of Medellin elites. They introduced me to an up-and-coming DJ named Esteban Arcila. Here is a picture we took in my home after we discussed upcoming events. Here is Michael on the left, Esteban, Melissa, and me on the far right. We shot the music video at our home. It made it on the news. Melissa also mentioned her husband Hooman Asbaghi, describing him as a successful innovator and promised to connect us. That introduction happened. On February 11th, 2022, at this event, me and Esteban collaborated on a white party-themed music video promoting his work. Melissa arrived with Hooman, and we hit it off immediately, talking for over an hour, and invited me to her private birthday celebration the following day. It was complete with food, drinks, live musicians, and DJs, and Melissa, his close friends, a crowd I was already somewhat familiar with. Hooman shared glimpses of his knowledge in advanced technology, warning about device vulnerabilities. To illustrate, he asked me to provide him with 2 cell phone numbers. I gave him my mother's number and my number. He proceeded to pull out a strange phone-like device and typed both numbers into it. That allowed him to simulate a call from my phone's contacts. While he stood from across the room, my cell phone suddenly showed an incoming call from my mother, and when I answered, it was a female voice. But it wasn't my mother. It was actually him. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup! Do you want to go do karate in the garage? Yup!
This immediately sparked my curiosity about who this guy was. I wanted to learn more. From that night on, our friendship developed organically. Hooman quickly recognized my background in crypto trading and began asking thoughtful questions related to crypto security and opportunities. He introduced me to his friend named Fred, who also went by Prince Khalifa, a charismatic figure living a very lavish lifestyle.
El príncipe y la reina presumieron en redes sociales su vida de lujos. Mostraron carros, fiestas, un costoso apartamento y sus visitas a los restaurantes más caros de Medellín.
He always had a large number of bodyguards, police, around caravan vehicles.
Y en reuniones y diligencias personales.
I love you, bro. If they like it, I like it.
Also dating a former Miss Colombia. Apparently, Fred had a very successful past and was very well connected with high government officials in the Colombian government. Hooman told me he was investing a large sum of money with Fred, and that he was going to meet with the Colombian president to engage in discussions around crypto regulation. Hooman suggested I get involved given my experience, which I appreciate deeply. It was a gesture that stood out. Here was someone I just met not too long ago, and he was already advocating for me in potential business dealings. Given my financial situation at the time, quietly navigating financial recovery through nightlife events. I really appreciated this. It reinforced his character as loyal and forward-thinking. As we spent more time together, I sensed underlying concerns on his end. He shared experience as he was having network anomalies with his cell phones, his internet, constantly being blocked, preventing him from conducting day-to-day errands like access to his funds, his Wi-Fi showing up as being managed. He would give me warnings about advanced tech vulnerabilities, how advanced AI was, and devices security, urging caution with phones. Shortly thereafter, he requested a late-night meeting at his hotel around late March, stressing its urgency. The setting in this hotel was understated, elegance, and an old money-style venue I'd never encountered before in Medellin. In the conference room, he opened up about his life in detail. In the early 1990s, Hooman Asbaghi pioneered the transfer of advanced medical technology to Iran to address cardiovascular diseases. Introducing the first coronary angioplasty and Palmas stent through partnerships with Johnson & Johnson and experts like Dr. Bernard Valeix. Valeix's visits from 1991 to 1993 involved procedures and training at Imam Khomeini Medical Center, elevating local specialists like Dr. Masoud Ghassemi to global standards. In 1995, Hooman co-founded Padtan Elm, a biotech firm, specializing in high-sensitivity ELISA kits for in vitro diagnostics, with equal 25% stakes held by himself, his mother, Faride Kavesh, Narguz Javad, and Alireza Amiri Garagoslu. As a U.S. citizen, he navigated sanctions to enable exports and, by 1997, established the cath lab training facility with Ghassemi, transforming Iranian cardiology. Sanctions forced his 1999 return to the U.S., where he granted his mother power of attorney, later allegedly misused. In the U.S., Hooman founded HBA Medical Group and MedPro Safety Products, securing 2003 patents for safety syringes that yielded a $1 million Nipro deal and royalties until 2010. Betrayals emerged involving his ex-wife, Carolyn Botzenhart, sister Ahmed Asbaghi, and entities like Ayla Medical and Transtech, co-founded by his mother and sister. His mother chairs Iran's prestigious pathobiology laboratory centers, PLC, who recognize for diagnostic excellence, collaborating with firms like Roche and Thermo Fisher on genomics research under NDAs. Hooman credits his and his mother's successes for positioning Padtan Elm as a top Iranian biopharma player, boosted by Botzenhart's Deutsche Bank financing. Amid 2012 sanctions and pharma downturn, he alleges his mother misused the power of attorney on January 14, 2013, to seize his 25% stake, 251,000 shares, and transfer assets to shell company Padtan, hollowing out Padtan Elm. He links this to disputes like Maurizio Zanetti's UCSD patents, for example, Gerloni versus Zanetti case, resolved post-transfer. Padtan Elm's expansions via Iranome, Illumina, Novartis partnerships, and a 2016 Roche deal through Shell Pt.1. Iranian firms navigated sanctions by creating a web of companies via shell networks in neighboring countries. Hooman accuses a conspiracy by his mother, sister, ex-wife, her professor, Dr. Zanetti, and former partner Ghassemi to defraud him, excluding him from Padtan Elm's profits despite his co-founding role. This was literally my face after hearing all of that. The information was overwhelming. A flood of names, dates, companies, and terminology that I wasn't familiar with, allegations that stretched back decades. It was all too much. Before leaving, he tore off a piece of paper and wrote Padtan Elm on one side and Iranome on the other, suggesting I look into them. Exhausted and very skeptical. I just said,
Okay.
Smiled and nodded. I must confess, I initially dismissed it as too far-fetched.
What?
Maybe it was the fact that the meeting lasted up until around 4 a.m. or that point I had no idea about his background, and at this point I hadn't gotten the chance to verify what I briefly just showed on the screen. I was in the dark. It all just sounded like rambling. Tia wasn't really buying it. We stayed in touch by phone as time passed, and his story lingered in my mind. I obviously noticed he was very well connected. Melissa mentioned he knew high-profile people all over the world. She credited him to be just like Albert Einstein. Not just from his appearance, but how brilliantly smart he was, so I had no reason to doubt him. But still, the story was just too long. Too much information. Too tired. He asked me if I knew of anybody that could help him get hidden web information, or bypass managed networks, or deter man-in-the-middle attacks. A hacker, I asked. He said, precisely. He figured since I operated in the crypto realm, I would maybe know somebody. And luckily for him, I did. Prior to having moved to the mansion with my buddies, I had stayed at this beautiful building called Energy Living, where I had met a very impressive individual, Jose Pino. He was around my age. I thought he was my neighbor, and he turned out to own an entire floor of the building. Not just that, He was also a recognized worldwide hacker and had managed to hack PayPal, Mozilla, Microsoft, Twitter, and get very well compensated for finding those bugs. We had spoken a few times, so we were acquaintances, but it was worth a shot. Unfortunately for me, Jose Pino wasn't interested and moved to another country. After that intense late-night meeting, some time had passed. We would chat on the phone here and there, staying connected. But to be honest, I didn't take his story too seriously at first. It felt so elaborate, almost too much to believe. And at that point, I had no real sense of his accomplishments or background. Plus, I had my own life challenges to handle, rebuilding after the robbery and focusing on networking. I partnered with a prominent jeweler figure in Medellin, Camilo Restrepo, through his network of contacts in the Latin music industry.
No por nada nos llaman la joyería de los famosos. Artistas como Arcángel, Ryan Castro y Daddy Yankee ya confían en nosotros. Ahora es tu turno. Nuestras joyas de 18 quilates son 100% originales, certificadas y garantizadas.
Pero ahorita rompemos la solar.
Together with other partners, invested into bringing Shaggy to do a concert in Medellin.
Medellin, you know how it is. Mr. Lover Lover Bombastic, December 8th. I'll be in your neck of the woods.
We had invested a lot into this. Unfortunately, the Colombia authorities revoked our permits 1 hour prior from the event, with people standing outside in line waiting to come in. This was devastating for everyone. I stayed in Medellin because tourism was rapidly expanding. A lot of opportunities seemed available in the music and nightlife industry. That December 2022, ChatGPT was buzzing on the news, as it had just been launched. I decided to try it out while laying in bed, bored. I started with a simple query: who is Hooman Asbaghi? The response caught me off guard. It mirrored details from our conversation, like his inventions and contributions to medical tech. Curious, I switched to Google and searched his name. What came up was eye-opening. Listings of his US patents and a significant legal history. It hit me. This guy was the real deal, with a track record that demanded attention. Pulling out that piece of paper from my wallet, the one with Padtan Elm and Iranome, I searched those terms next. The results aligned right away. For Padtan Elm, I found a LinkedIn profile describing it as a Tehran-based company founded in 1995 by scientists active in lab science. Since the 1970s, focused on reliable in vitro diagnostic products with strong performance in sensitivity and reproducibility. Digging deeper, I came across an image on academia linking Padtan Elm, Thermo Fisher, and Hooman's name directly. Then there was a Rasmio profile claiming Hooman Ali Tabatabai Asbaghi as vice chairman of the board. It was behind a paywall and it was in another language, but I did notice the company logo matched the LinkedIn one I'd seen. For Iranome, searches revealed it was a genomic database documenting genetic variations in the Iranian population. Iranome was a huge opportunity for Padtan Elm. It aimed to resolve Iran's critical lack of genomic data, along with the overall diverse Middle Eastern population, which is underrepresented in global databases. The project provided a comprehensive catalog of Iranian genomic variations, improving molecular diagnosis for genetic diseases, enabling precision medicine. These discoveries changed my view. What I'd initially dismissed now had tangible backing. Intrigued, I reached out to Hooman, sharing what I'd found and admitting my early skepticism. I explained how AI tools had lent credibility to his account. He wasn't familiar with ChatGPT, which made sense given he was in his late 50s and I was in my mid-20s, and his generation doesn't always track the latest tech trends. He was grateful and saw potential in AI for his own investigations. I asked for more specifics to explore, and he mentioned how his searches often hit roadblocks. Networks glitching, internet access was cut off, and Padtan Elm's online footprint seemed to vanish. This only heightened my interest. I requested the full written details from our hotel conversation so I could verify them systematically over the coming months. Using ChatGPT and other AI tools, I queried elements of his story. And the validations were striking, aligning on nearly everything. Of course, I knew AI isn't always accurate. It can make mistakes or generate coincidences. But the specific questions I asked yielded detailed answers, including names, that were shocking in their alignment. Could it all be mere coincidence? Or AI just echoing what it thought I wanted? Maybe. But it's odd. Still, it wasn't conclusive enough for me, so I pursued stronger evidence. I researched the Palma Shot stent and Johnson & Johnson, checking dates against Hooman's timeline. They matched. While I couldn't find direct mentions of him introducing it to Iran, I factored in that widespread. Internet use didn't take off until the late 1990s and early 2000s, so records from earlier might be sparse, especially given Iran's long-standing US sanctions, and relative isolation from global networks, which could limit what's available online. Additionally, since I don't speak Farsi and was conducting searches only in English, I realized some details might simply not be accessible to me. I looked into Dr. Bernard Valix. With just a quick Google search, I found a 1993 article on stent implantation in human coronary arteries authored by Valix. This 1995 intracoronary stenting was also authored by Valeix, and this interview of him. With Valeix confirmed as a cardiologist, now we have to find a link of Valeix to Dr. Masoud Ghassemi. I came across this profile of Masoud Ghassemi, where he put Dr. Valeix as a reference. Direct connection. Hooman elaborated that Ghassemi's involvement with the stent tied back to his mother, who had co-founded the Iranian Atherosclerosis Society. He claims Iranome was set up post a 1994 Athens trip to a major medical conference, which he brought Ghassemi to. Significantly aiding is his development as a later world-renowned cardiologist and interventionist. He also shared how Dr. Mohsin Saeed, a longtime friend of over 30 years who once dated his sister, Omid, introduced him to stent technology and helped train Ghassemi in peripheral artery stenting.
A stent is a tiny expandable tube inserted into an artery to restore blood flow blocked by a buildup of plaque. A cardiologist will make a small incision in your wrist, groin area, or your thigh. Together with the stent, a small flexible tube called a catheter with an inflatable balloon will be inserted and moved to the blocked artery. The balloon is inflated, pushing the buildup of plaque against the artery walls to open the blockage. The balloon is deflated, and together with the catheter, it is removed, leaving the stent in place. Now a permanent part of your artery, the stent will hold the artery open and keep it from closing again. Following your stent procedure, you may be discharged within a few hours or the following day.
In 2003, Hooman arranged for Ghassemi to train with pioneers like Dr. Richard Schatz and Paul Tierstein at Scripps Clinic. Ghassemi stayed at his home for 3 weeks, and by 2005 arranged Ghassemi's second San Diego visit to train under Dr. Mohsin Saeed, opportunities that showcased Ghassemi's potential but set the stage for his later betrayal. And boom, here is a direct link where he references all three doctors. While Ghassemi's personal profile doesn't prove the conspiracy to be true, it most certainly highlights Ghassemi's expertise as a world-renowned cardiologist and interventionist, aiding critically to personalized medicine, setting the stage for later AI-related claims, and links him to the Iranian Atherosclerosis Society. It corroborates dates and places directly linking him to Scripps Clinic in La Jolla, doctors Valeix, Saeed, and Tierstein. But if this isn't enough, I'll let you hear it from him directly.
Hi, this is Dr. Masoud Ghassemi, cardiologist and interventionalist. With decades of expertise in advanced cardiac procedures, I have dedicated my career to enhance cardiovascular care. As the president of Iranian Atherosclerosis Society, it has been my honor to promote medical education and raise awareness of cardiovascular diseases. Additionally, I strive to improve diagnostic treatment methods in cardiology and the cardiovascular field by utilizing innovative technologies, especially artificial intelligence, AI. In our clinic, we are fully equipped to evaluate medical records from patients worldwide and offer the best available treatment option. See you then.
In my book, this laid a foundation of plausibility, enough to say, let's hear him out for a second. Over the years, Saeed had been supportive, even introducing Hooman to Dr. Richard H. Walker for his later hip problems. Dr. Walker and Hooman's hips will become very relevant later in the story. Contact with Saeed faded amid inquiries, partly after a falling out over a financial investment. I examined an impact of sanction and healthcare system reform on the healthcare performance and pharmaceutical market in Iran, 2001 to 2016, as it was relevant, aligning with the date he left Iran. The healthcare system and pharmaceutical sector have been facing the partially counteracting effects of the HSEP and the imposed sanctions. Iranian pharmaceutical market has grown rapidly in recent years. During 1997 to 2010, the population has grown 1.53% annually, but the pharmaceutical market grew 20%, 8.38% per year, and drug consumption per capita reached $34.43 from $2.28. Immediately after he left Iran in 1999, leaving his mother with a full power of attorney to oversee his best interest in all of Padtan Elm's affairs in his absence. This is an image of the POA. In this period, domestic production grew 1,018%, while importation grew 4,373%. Noteworthy, PIN market analysis shows that the Iranian pharmaceutical market grew overwhelmingly. The population of the country rose to 79.9 million from 72.2 million. The market size grew to $4.608 billion in 2016, from $2.358 billion in 2008. The market size was $235 billion in 2008 and increased to $471 billion in 2012, right before the sanctions took effect. Padtan Elm was in the perfect position to ride one of the biggest waves in Iranian healthcare history. And if Hooman's allegations are correct, they were able to cash out right before the biggest crash in almost 2 decades, aligning, hypothetically, at least in timeline plausibility, with 2013 marking the year the alleged asset transfer took place, and it also marked the end of Mauricio Zanetti's 20-year-long dispute with Marla Gerloni, conveniently freeing up his patents shortly after the alleged asset transfer took place, right before the U.S. expanded sanctions on Iran, effective July 1st, 2013, which subsequently led to this, and I quote, "The market dropped to 3% $82 billion pursuant to the imposition of the sanctions." This is the 1999 POA translated into English. From this translation, we can confirm that it is in fact a full power of attorney. From Hooman Asbaghi to his mother, Farideh Kavesh. This sparked the question, was Hooman in fact one of the co-founder of Padtan Elm? He claimed Nargiz Javad was also a partner. Here, she appears as managing partner of the company. And here, this coincides with Hooman's initial allegations, with a slight spelling variation, but close enough to note. That's one hell of a coincidence. As we went on, Hooman shared the evidence he'd compiled over the years, allowing me to cross-reference and build a clearer picture. As time progressed, Hooman also began sharing his ongoing and concurrent investigating. While I was verifying the evidence he had gathered so far, he was conducting his own investigation with the new AI tool. This marked a historical moment in Hooman's investigation, as AI facilitated his investigation, which had shown so difficult in the years prior. Reasons he attributed to his sister's, Asbaghi's doing, which will become more relevant later in the story. He began sharing his own AI chats from investigations into these matters. He'd used tools like ChatGPT and other similar AI tools to query details about Padtan Elm, Iranome, and related elements. And the responses often aligned with his experiences, raising intriguing questions about the bigger picture. While I recognize that AI outputs aren't definitive proof, they can have inaccuracies or coincidences. They certainly prompted deeper thought, as AI could not be ignored. It was most certainly being used on a large scale around the world to aid in investigations, as seen in this articles, which highlight how AI has become a valuable aid in piecing together complex cases, much like it was helping here. Hooman didn't stop at AI. He shared concrete documents tying him to Padtan Elm, including evidence of his role as a co-founder. These included papers with signatures from his mother and Kianush Boluli, confirming Boluli's position. As an auditor, this will be relevant during the alleged 2013 asset transfer to Padtan Elm. The original documents he was providing me as evidence were in Farsi, so I relied on translations to review them, fully aware that unofficial. Translations can introduce discrepancies, especially since I don't speak the language and had to depend entirely on what was provided. Yet, the translated content aligned closely with Hooman's descriptions, offering strong support for his claims. He mentioned he has hundreds of such records, but these examples stood out as clear indicators of his involvement. He also showed me images he'd saved before they vanished from the web, featuring Padtan Elm's APF EIA kits, Helicobacter pylori tests, and neonatal G6PD products. I wasn't familiar with the technical terms, but it was evident this added weight to his claims. Next, he provided evidence of Padtan Elm's historical online activity, including articles, studies, all referencing the company. Padtan Elm was also mentioned alongside major players, sometimes even American firms, suggesting it operated on a significant scale. One standout was a rocket reach profile for Padtan Elm, noting a founding around 1997, close to the 1995% date he'd mentioned. This seemed to me like a minor discrepancies that didn't undermine the overall picture. On the contrary, it raised questions prompting me to dig deeper into the alleged events that transpired. I investigated Padtan Elm, the entity Hooman claimed was set up as a shell company around 2013 to receive Padtan Elm's assets. Their official website claimed a founding date of 1990, positioning them as pioneers in medical devices, in vitro diagnostic kits, and antibiogram discs, complete with boasts of over 150 products and an ISO 13485 certification from the British URS organization. At first glance, this earlier founding date appeared to contradict Hooman's allegations, implying Padtan Elm predated Padtan Elm. However, a check on the Wayback Machine revealed no online activity for Padtan Elm prior to 2013, in stark contrast to Padtan Elm's digital presence dating back to 2002. Moreover, I couldn't independently verify the ISO 13485 claim. Through searches on URS holdings or related certification databases, no public records confirmed it. This lack of early evidence and unverified credentials raised more questions than answers, logically aligning with Hooman's theory if Padtan was indeed created or activated in 2013 for the transfer, a backdated founding claim could be part of an effort to legitimize it retroactively. He demonstrated how his own research attempts were frequently blocked with internet failures or restrictions kicking in after short sessions, which struck me as unusual. Crucially, he'd saved a PDF of the old Padtan Elm website before its deletion, along with product images. He showed me how its digital footprint was actively being erased from archives like the Wayback Machine. He had records of the company's online presence dating back to 2000, and two, with signs it had gone dormant around 2023. A major piece was Kianush Boluli's testimony, originally in Farsi, which I translate to English and will read to you. And I quote, "In the name of he who taught the soul to think, with respect and regards to the esteemed friend, Mr. Hooman Ali Asbaghi Tabatabai, this letter is submitted to bring to your attention the following matter. Given my legal responsibility as the principal inspector of Padtan Elm Company for the years 2011 to 2013, and considering your absence from Iran during those years as well, as your lack of involvement in the company's ongoing operations, I wish to inform you of the following developments. During several working sessions held at the premises of Padtan Elm Company and the Pathobiology Laboratory Center, attended by the company's managing director, Dr. Narges Javad, holder of 250 shares out of 1,000 total shares, and the chairman of the board, Ms. Farideh Kavesh, holder of 250 shares and acting as your attorney for your 250 shares. Discussions were held regarding the company's current affairs. It was decided that, in order to facilitate the export of the company's products, owing to the technical expertise and high quality of said products, a new company should be established. Consequently, the assets of Padtan Elm Company were to be transferred to this new entity. Subsequently, on January 14, 2013, a meeting was held without your presence, during which a resolution was drafted and signed by the majority shareholders to effect this transfer. To my utmost surprise, after this resolution was finalized among the shareholders, I was informed that you were unaware of these proceedings. I made several attempts to contact you through your mother, requesting your phone number. However, she stated that she holds your full power of attorney and that this matter falls outside my purview, asserting that there was no need to contact you directly. Since your sister, Ms. Asbaghi, was managing the related affairs, I was convinced that you had no knowledge of these events. I endeavored to find a means of communication with you, but, as in the past, Ms. Farideh Kavesh, in an attempt to suppress the issue and sever communication, removed me from my position as principal inspector. This action was evidently taken to enable them to execute their plans without interference. Kianush Boluly, independent accountant. This was pivotal, directly supporting the exclusion claims. Oh, but he was fired, so he has a motive to lie? True, Hooman also shared audio recordings as evidence. One featured Narges Javad admitting to suppressing information from him.
سلام آقای بهزودی، احوال
خوبه،
شما
خوب
خوب
هست شما؟
هستی؟
سلامتید، متشکرم. شما
چه
خوبی؟
خبر؟
سلامتی شما خوبی؟ ببخشید مزاحمتون شدم. خانم دکتر، یه
نه خواهش کن بفرمایید.
اظهارنامه برای من اومده از طرف همین یه گروه وکلای نمیدونم چی کلمبیا هومان فرستاده برای من. یعنی من
خب
نبودم، دیروز چیزم اومده بود در خصوص بحث حسابهای شرکت پادتن علم اون زمانی که من بازرس بودم و
بله
اشاره
بله
کرده به یه جلسه نمیدونم سال 92 که سهامش جابجا شده. یه سری سوالات پرسیده، می‌خواستم اینا.
Though I don't speak Farsi, I highly doubt Hooman would share this if it didn't hold the content he claimed it to have. He then provided the full Razmio profile I'd glimpsed earlier, the one in Farsi behind a paywall. He'd accessed and saved it long before, and when I translated the entire site, it corroborated nearly everything, the founders. Boluly as auditor during key periods and a series of meeting minutes, naming all the individuals from his story, were also displayed. We reviewed his specific profile there, along with those of Farideh Kavesh and Kianush Boluly. It all connected seamlessly. Additionally, Hooman shared studies linking Padtan Elm to Iranome-related work. While the official Iranome site doesn't explicitly name Padtan Elm, given the company, his prominence in Iranian biotech, especially with his mother's pathobiology lab, and Pathobiology Laboratory Center is one of the largest and most equipped medical laboratories in the country and provides its services in the field of clinical medicine and pathology. It seemed reasonable to infer involvement in such a groundbreaking genomic project. He described ongoing research limitations, like timed anomalies and Wi-Fi blocks cutting him off mid-search. The sheer detail and effort in compiling it all made one thing clear. This level of documentation pointed to real substance behind his story. Why would anyone go through such extensive trouble to assemble these artifacts unless there was genuine foundation to his claims? Hooman also alleged that his now ex-wife, Carolyn Botzenhart, played a pivotal role, claiming she was a financial advisor with close ties to his sister Ahmed and mother, Frida Kavesh, leveraging her positions to transfer funds to Iran amid U.S. sanctions, and later interfering with his Wells Fargo account following his 2016 lawsuit win. Starting in the early 2000s, Carolyn worked in private wealth management at Deutsche Bank Securities from 2003-2017, overlapping with the bank's 2015 $258 million fine for sanctions violations involving Iran and Syria rising to vice president of the German-American business group in its Costa Mesa office while residing in La Jolla, putting her in close proximity to Hooman and ideally positioned to allegedly facilitate billions in support for Padtan Elm's endeavors. She then transitioned to Wells Fargo Clearing Services in San Diego 2017 to 2022, matching Hooman's theory that she began working at his bank, potentially interfering with his accounts, after his 2016 legal victory. While it's not direct evidence, it sets a matching timeline, placing her at the right place and the right time. Her new job in San Diego included managing high net worth assets. Hooman's claimed this was facilitated by the network of high-profile contacts Ahmed had established in San Diego, and currently serves as Senior Vice President Financial Advisor at UBS Private Wealth Management in La Jolla. Hooman claims she continues working closely with Ahmed, which upon deeper investigation, I discovered this. If you look two blue highlighted names on the left, you'll see they were both listed as concert committee members for CureBound. CureBound will become very relevant later in this story. Tied to this was Maurizio Zanetti, whom Hooman positioned as central to the conspiracy involving Iranome, Padtan Elm, Cosmo Biosciences, UCSD, and Transgenics, a corporation Zanetti founded, originally called Transgenics Biotech. Here is what Hooman said.
Zanetti met Omid in the early 90s, and she started to work at his lab at UCSD. And initially, he worked also at the Salk Institute with Dr. Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio vaccine. And so she liked those types of crowds. And then Zanetti and her started dating, and I don't know what happened after that, but then she started working in his lab, filing grants. And this is all within 1990, 1991. And then obviously Zanetti comes to Omid's house and meets my mother, finds out she finds out he's an immunologist, he finds out that my mom's in the lab business, and I'm sure the discussions about conducting clinical trials in Iran started then because of the type of government that we have over there and because of the connections that my mom has. But I remember one time when Omid and my mom were talking about this, my mom said, well, I don't know anyone high enough up in the academia over there, because they're, like real academia, because everyone's a crook that, there's just, and the ministries and stuff, So when I went to Iran and introduced the stent, I remember Maurizio learning of it. My mom told Omid and Maurizio about Dr. Gassemi, and so the idea of having Gassemi become that missing link started because of the connection that I made with Gassemi.
Hooman alleged that his sister, Ahmed, had already cut a deal with Zanetti to tie up his transgenesis. Patents in court through a false allegation by Mara Gerloni, allowing time for covert developments. As part of this, Ahmed set up a cover-up company named Transintech to obscure the maneuvers. This is what we found when we searched it on the Corporation Wiki. Corporation Wiki is a website that allows you to search for a specific company's information. He claimed Zanetti's patents were delayed via these disputes to aid Iranome's covert trials from 1993 to 2013, with the help of pathobiology lab in Padtan Elm under the leadership of Hooman's mother, Ms. Faride Kavesh. And his sister, Ahmed Asbaghi, served as connector and facilitator through her connections in the San Diego high society, community leaders, and the broader medical community, circles that overlap with the biotech and research worlds central to Padtan Elm and Iranome. The Zanetti versus Gerloni lawsuit was key. This case stood out to me as particularly relevant, given Hooman's allegation that legal disputes were strategically prolonged to shield patents during covert developments for projects like Iranome. As I dug into it, several aspects felt unusual, timings that aligned too neatly, quick accusations and patterns of behavior that raised questions about whether these were genuine conflicts or something more orchestrated. Let me walk you through what the court documents revealed. In 1987, Dr. Zanetti, a native of Italy, became a professor of medicine at the University of California, San Diego, UCSD. At some point, he was named director of the Laboratory of Immunology at Moore's UCSD Cancer Center. Under UCSD's policy, it owned any patents derived from his work, but he was entitled to 35% of any net income from licensing the patents. During the 1990s, UCSD patented 8 separate concepts Dr. Zanetti developed, which formed the conception of a universal cancer vaccine. In August 1993, Giroloni, also a native Italian, joined Dr. Zanetti's laboratory as a postdoctorate fellow. Giroloni was involved in ongoing experiments on Dr. Zanetti's technology. She was also required to assign any patent rights to UCSD. In October 1993, Dr. Zanetti was accused of scientific fraud. UCSD investigated the matter for 3 years, and a hearing was ultimately held before a tenure committee, which exonerated him after determining his accuser had lied. Dr. Zanetti threatened litigation against UCSD, and in 1998 the parties reached a settlement that required UCSD to release its rights to the patents to him. The same year, Purdue approached Dr. Zanetti about using his patented technology for its own project. He was willing to enter into a licensing agreement in return for Purdue's investment in a prospective company to be called Transgenics. This confirms a few things from Hooman's story. First, Transgenics was real and was created by Zanetti, as Hooman claimed. It also places Asbaghi and Maurizio Zanetti at UCSD at the relevant time, and it highlights UCSD had ownership of 65% of Zanetti's patents, which is normal for professors and universities. It also highlights Dr. Zanetti's early interest in cancer research.
The big questions with the COVID-19 pandemic has been how long immunity may last for those who have been infected or have gotten the vaccine. A new study by researchers at UC San Diego School of Medicine is raising concern maybe not as long as we were hoping for. And we're joined by one of the senior authors of this study, Dr. Maurizio Zanetti. And Dr. Zanetti, welcome.
Thank you for hosting me.
So a little background here. You looked at a pretty broad range of data as part of this study.
Yes, we did. It was driven by curiosity, essentially, because we wanted to know if the mechanism that sustain the initiation and the persistence of specific antibody responses that will impact transmission by preventing infection. How is that mechanics within the immune system works? And our study, and the study was done in collaboration with Dr. Hannah Carter, a medical geneticist, interrogated the set of molecules that set themselves as referees of the immune response in humans. The same system is the one that regulates transplantation between of organ transplantation between different individuals, and we found that the spot that is specifically implicated in binding to the receptor on human cells by the virus, and which is obviously in everybody's.
If you're a regular person like me, you don't know what any of that means.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
It sure is provocative. It highlights Dr. Zanetti's expertise in relevant events like COVID-19. Something that struck me as odd was the short period of time from when Giroloni joined Zanetti to when she sued Zanetti. One would think that as a newcomer, you'd at least give it the 3 months before. You decide if you'd even continue working there or not, much less strike a lawsuit. In 1999, Dr. Zanetti incorporated Transgenics in anticipation of a deal with Purdue. That year, he gave a few persons, including Giroloni, written offers for the opportunity to purchase Transgenics stock dependent on the Purdue deal going forward. Giroloni did not respond to the offer or tender any payment, and no shareholder agreement was ever executed. By October 2000, the Purdue deal appeared doubtful, and an Italian company, Cosmo S.p.A., Cosmo, expressed interest in Dr. Zanetti's patented technology. On legal advice, to accommodate a deal with Cosmo, he formed 2 holding corporations, Progentech and Urigen. In 2001, the Purdue deal finally fell through. That July, Dr. Zanetti and Cosmo entered into a licensing agreement for the patents Urigen held. He was reportedly entitled to several $1 million from Cosmo for the licensing of the technology. Cosmo also purchased the shell corporation Transgenics from Dr. Zanetti to use as a vehicle for patient trials at UCSD and changed the name to Cosmo Bioscience Inc., CBI. Dr. Zanetti netted $18,000 from the sale.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Odd. These profound scientists, amidst ongoing multi-million-dollar deals and foreseen success, would sell transgenics for a mere $18,000. Beginning in 2002, Dr. Zanetti was a consultant for CBI for a phase 1 clinical trial. Gerloni began working for CBI part-time and reduced her employment with UCSD to part-time. In 2005, Dr. Zanetti and Cosmo had a dispute and parted ways, and Gerloni left UCSD to become CBI's chief executive officer.
What? What?
So you sell your company for a mere $18,000 to Cosmo Bioscience Inc., and the woman that sued you becomes CEO of that same company? I think it's fair to infer that Zanetti introduced Gerloni to Cosmo. And one would think that if someone sues you, you'd avoid them, much less aid their advancements. Someone striking a lawsuit immediately after having just joined is disruptive for any workplace. If the case was dismissed, would that person still be permitted to work there? Would she be a liability leading to more problems in the futures? Would you recommend someone like this? And if I'm sure their accusations are lies, I would distance myself and would encourage caution around her, because lies are immoral. In June 2006, Gerloni sued Dr. Zanetti for misappropriation, or theft of corporate opportunity, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of contract, and breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, fraud, and constructive trust. The gist of the complaint was that Gerloni was a co-inventor and co-owner of the patents, but Dr. Zanetti secretly claimed sole inventor status. He promised to share any net proceeds from licensing the patents with Gerloni and other laboratory team members and to make them co-owners of transgenics. In August 2008, Dr. Zanetti moved for summary judgment, or in the alternative, summary adjudication. In January 2009, the court stayed the matter pending the resolution of a United States District Court patent suit Gerloni had filed against him. The federal complaint alleged Gerloni co-invented the 7th out of Dr. Zanetti's 8 patents. To establish co-inventor status, Gerloni was required to prove at trial that she significantly contributed to conception of the invention of STT. Her testimony alone would be insufficient. She would have to adduce corroborating evidence. The federal court explained, "The evidence demonstrates that Gerloni did not have a broad understanding of the science behind the invention when she joined the UCSD lab in July 1993. Furthermore, the evidence indicates that what she did know, she learned from Zanetti during the course of her employment in the lab. Gerloni provides no evidence to show that, at the time the invention was conceived, she had even a general understanding of the definite and permanent idea of the operative invention, much less the expertise and specialized scientific knowledge necessary to constitute its conception. Gerloni's claim of conception is premised almost entirely on a presentation of her ideas relating to journal articles she presented to the lab. We also note that in an October 7th, 2003 letter, during the time she worked for both UCSD and CBI, Gerloni responded to a conflict of interest inquiry from UCSD by stating, "I am not an inventor in any intellectual property licensed to Cosmo. As to the lack of mutual assent and certainty, Dr. Zanetti submitted deposition testimony of Gerloni in which she admitted she could not recall him promising her anything in particular, testimony that contradicted her declaration." Okay, wait. What? Mara Gerloni, what are you doing? You are all over the place.
That's suspicious.
What do you mean you can't recall any promises? That is the whole entire foundation of this lawsuit. It's we are years deep into this conflict and suddenly you can't recall anything? So you are just wasting everybody's time? Oh, is this what Hooman was talking about? On November 4th, 2010, Gerloni moved for leave to amend the complaint. She sought to delete the cause of action for misappropriation or theft of corporate opportunity, delete claims belonging to the corporation, and add allegations about an oral contract. She argued she was not a shareholder, as Zanetti lied to her and never gave her the shares, as promised. She does not have to be a shareholder to sue for fraud and breach of contract. Okay. You lost me. So now you can recall? I thought you just said you couldn't recall anything. Now you're changing things? So which is it? Sounds like you're just trying to make up reasons to sue Zanetti. In December 2010, the court issued a tentative ruling that granted Gerloni leave to amend. Again, however, the court reversed itself after the hearing. On February 1st, 2011, the court issued an order denying her leave to amend on the ground the allegations of the proposed amended complaint fail to sufficiently state a personal claim that can be reconciled with the allegations of the original complaint. Why does Gerloni want time to amend? This has been ongoing for more than a decade. Now coming up on 2 decades? Just move on, lady. Focus on your current job. Even the court is starting to get tired of her basically saying she doesn't have a foundation for her claims. Why doesn't Zanetti just file for dismissal? He could even counter-sue her for defamation and wasting his time tying him up in lawsuits for years. Gerloni contends, however, that the complaint sufficiently alleged individual claims and In opposition to the summary judgment motion, she raised tribal issues of material fact. She asserts that, although there may have been injuries to the corporation, the same set of facts also gave rise to a cause of action for breach of oral contract and fraud claims that belong to her, not transgenics. But you are CEO of the CBI, the company that acquired transgenics? Giroloni concedes her entire complaint is based on the lies Dr. Zanetti told her in order to induce her to work and continue working on the technology. In a November 7th, 2008, declaration Giroloni submitted in opposition to Dr. Zanetti's original summary judgment motion, she detailed Dr. Zanetti's promises. The declaration states he promised me that I would share in any profits derived from the technology that I assisted in creating, agreed that I would share in all profits derived from commercializing the technology, told me to be patient because we had brought the technology to the brink of scientific success, and soon we were going to share in its commercial success, repeatedly told me that I would be a part owner in transgenics and that I would share in and benefit from my hard work developing the technology, and said that I was a 6.5% owner of transgenics, which entitled me to 650,000 shares of its stock. The declaration also states, Dr. Zanetti told me that transgenics owned the rights to the antigenized antibodies and STI technology, and I had understood from my conversation with Dr. Zanetti in 1998 that transgenics owned the technology. Okay, this raises some questions for me. Wouldn't you have proof of work? Wouldn't you be able to provide strong evidence of your contributions? Notes, studies, corroborating witnesses. If you were doing all of this work based solely on promises, then that just makes me question your logic. It even raises the suspicion that Zanetti and Giroloni could have been romantically involved. This can promise me Tosh's allegations sound a little like a crazy ex-girlfriend. But I could just be a little biased, given my involvement with Hooman. Sure, let's continue reading and see what the court concluded. In support of his 2010 renewed motion for summary judgment, he submitted portions of her testimony in which she denied recalling any specific promise. When asked whether Dr. Zanetti ever told her she would be part owner of transgenics, she responded, I don't remember. When asked whether he ever told her she would benefit financially from transgenics, she responded, I don't remember. She also testified she did not recall him telling her they would be partners or she would own 6.5% of transgenics. When asked whether Dr. Zanetti made any promise to her between 1993 and 2001, she responded, any promises? Which kind? Which kind of promises? Dr. Zanetti's attorney specified any kind of promise to you, and she responded, not that I can recall right now. Giroloni also admitted Dr. Zanetti never told her transgenics owned the patented technology. Giroloni also testified she did not respond to Dr. Zanetti's written offer on the opportunity to purchase transgenic stock because I don't think there was anything to accept. I believe this was more like a recognition of my efforts. I believe was like Dr. Zanetti recognizing me for all the efforts that I made and all my work in the laboratory. So I didn't really think, as I told you, I was very happy and probably, and for sure I thank him, about the opportunity that he was giving to me. But I don't think I ever responded formally. She confirmed, I don't think I saw this letter as an offer, but more like a recognition. And for me, it was a good recognition of my effort. I was happy about that. What? I can just imagine the people in the court looking at each other like, or looking at her like. Giroloni attempts to make light of her deposition testimony, asserting she merely had a memory lapse and could not recall Dr. Zanetti's promises at that particular time. Giroloni, however, is a highly educated and trained scientist, and she was deposed just over a month after she signed her declaration. Had Dr. Zanetti made the false promises detailed in her declaration, which according to her declaration left her feeling betrayed, it borders on the absurd that she would forget them within a month's time. Her admissions are not trivial matters. They go to the heart of her case. Notably, at the time of Dr. Zanetti's renewed summary judgment motion in 2010, Giroloni did not sign a new declaration under oath explaining discrepancies between her original declaration and her deposition testimony or claiming her memory had been restored. Without any recollection of a promise, she had no prospects for trial. Yeah, because this whole entire case is based on her memory and what she recalls. She said, he said, contest. The only problem is this is revolving around some very important patents that if they'd not been tangled up in these silly and inconsistent accusations, they could have paved the road for even more discoveries. There are endless possibilities as to the course of history had this long legal incident not occurred. Contrary to Giroloni's position, her admissions and deposition were not equivocal, fragmentary, or taken out of context. Moreover, in asserting she submitted other evidence that raised triable issues of fact notwithstanding her admissions, she relies principally on her declaration. To defeat summary judgment, of course, the other evidence had to be something other than her disregarded declaration. Like I noted, her whole foundation is based on promises. Source, trust me, bro. They continued prolonging this, and Giroloni also asserts other portions of her deposition testimony. alleging Dr. Zanetti led her to believe she was a partner and owner of transgenics. She cites testimony that in 1997 she and Dr. Zanetti began discussing the formation of a company. They looked for laboratory space, and a business plan was drafted that included her as director in charge of the science, but she did not recall ever discussing the draft with him. Yeah, probably because this sounds like a made-up position. Science and stuff, you know. I remember transgenics being brought up as a collaboration between us as opening the company, but I don't remember the specific matter of discussion. I remember a lot of brainstorming about the future, about the development, about going ahead in a direction. Transgenics was part of it. She thought she was a founder of transgenics. Because we started transgenics together, she did not recall what words he used, but in some way, he made me believe I was the owner of the company. He made me believe that we were starting a company together. In my opinion, if you start something together from scratch, that could mean that you own part of the company. He told her that if the technology would work, they were going to be billionaires or millionaires. And she thought she would receive money from him, although she had no idea how much. Is it just me, or is she really starting to sound like a crazy ex-girlfriend that won't get over you? Additionally, Gerloni testified she lacked knowledge about intellectual property, and thus, she was thinking doctor. Zanetti was taking care of that. She did not see transgenics' entire business plan, but she trusted Dr. Zanetti to protect my absolute best interest. She had no idea what it would cost to start a company, but she thought funds would come from outside investors rather than herself. Dr. Zanetti went to a biotech company up in the Bay Area to make a presentation in order to get them interested in putting some money in the company. And when transgenics was started, my understanding was that there was profit for everybody involved in the company, but I didn't have a quantification. And that was another thing that I thought Dr. Zanetti would take care, and I was trusting that he would have covered my interests. Gerloni's first deposition was taken on September 8, 2006. Her separate statement also cites testimony from this session, in which she admitted she did not recall Dr. Zanetti telling her she would be a director of transgenics, whether she attended any directors meeting, and even whether there ever was a directors meeting. She also testified, Dr. Zanetti mentioned to me that he wanted to open a biotech company, and I would have a key role in it. Likewise, a jury could not reasonably find in Gerloni's favor on the certainty element. Her evidence does not suggest any meeting of the minds on the material terms of any agreement, and thus issues of breach and remedy are not capable of proof. The complaint's fraud claim is not for actual fraud, but for constructive fraud, based on the breach of a fiduciary duty Dr. Zanetti supposedly owed Gerloni. Even if there was arguably a fiduciary relationship, which appears doubtful, the fraud claim is also based on supposed promises Dr. Zanetti made to her, and again, she did not raise a triable issue of material fact on the issue. Summary judgment in his favor was proper. Yeah, totally agree. This whole case appeared fictitious, fabricated. Alternatively, Gerloni contends the court abused its discretion by denying he motioned for leave to amend the complaint to strengthen allegations of individual harm caused by Dr. Zanetti's alleged promises. Again, however, her individual claims, no matter how sufficiently alleged, are untenable given her admissions in deposition testimony and the lack of other competent evidence to raise a triable issue of material fact. The case was decided and concluded on February 1, 2013. The lawsuit's duration, from the 1993 initial dispute to the final appeal affirmation on February 1, 2013, spanning exactly 20 years, aligning strikingly with Hooman's claimed asset transfer at Padtan Elm on January 14, 2013, just 18 days earlier. Coincidence? Or a deliberate delay to protect patents during alleged covert trials? Gerloni's memory lapse in deposition felt contrived, especially for someone so invested, and her shift from accuser to CBI CEO after Cosmo bought transgenics, before suing again adds layers. Was this genuine or part of a larger strategy? Hooman elaborated on the broader challenges that Iranian pharmaceutical companies face amidst international sanctions, highlighting the complexities of maintaining operations in a restricted global environment.
Having to battle cancer is tough enough, but here in Iran, patients have to deal with medicine shortages and increased prices.
Of course, high cost of treatment impacts us. Under these sanctions and current economic problems, it really hurts families. Some patients have to spend $200 to $300 a month.
Iran produces most of its own medicines, but drugs needed for rare diseases and specialized treatment need to be imported.
The United States says medicines are exempt from sanctions, but the banks are not. And that's what doctors here in Iran say is the problem.
Although medicines are harder to get, the government says Iran is resilient.
Without the ability to buy, sell or transfer money, trade in medicines, just like any other goods, is disrupted. But domestic pharmaceutical capabilities have helped us to produce over 98% of our needs locally.
There is still a gap to be filled, however, especially when it comes to medications for special disease. Sanctions have strained Iran's pharmaceutical industry, making access to life-saving medicine difficult for patients and placing pressure on manufacturers. But domestic firms are stepping up to ensure that homegrown solutions keep essential medicines within reach for millions of Iranians. While domestic production grows, manufacturers still face challenges like accessing hard currency, difficulties in getting raw materials, international auditing issues, and transaction barriers.
It needs a lot of effort, it needs a lot of investment, of course, but the good news for the people is that we are trying to provide all these medicines which otherwise we had to import with very high prices. So this is how we try to cope with the situation, to be innovative, to produce more products.
Despite the pressures of sanctions, Iran's pharmaceutical industry continues to adapt and push forward. Domestic innovation offers a path to resilience, but ensuring a steady access to medicine remains crucial for Iran, as shortages affect more than supply. They affect people's lives as well. Toy Desedi, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
He explained that Padtan Elm wasn't just a pharmaceutical. Padtan Elm biopharmaceutical branch achieved exponential growth as well. Amidst the 1997-2013 Iranian pharmaceutical market boom, despite devastation in other sectors. Padtan Elm's international expansion was facilitated by leveraging Creative Commons licensing, a suite of free, standardized legal tools designed to promote open access to scientific data and enable international collaborations in areas like genomics, even in the face of geopolitical obstacles. What are genomics? The study of an organism's complete set of DNA, called its genome. Padtan Elm's positioning was bolstered by foundational work dating back to the 1970s when Hooman's mother, Farideh Kavesh, and her partners from the Pathobiology Laboratory Center, one of Iran's largest and most equipped medical laboratories specializing in clinical pathology, diagnostics, and sample analysis, provided critical infrastructure for genetic research and data collection, logically, enabling Padtan Elm's participation in major global projects like the Human Genome Project, the landmark international effort from 1990 to 2000, and 3 that sequenced the entire human DNA blueprint for the first time.
It was launched in 1990 with the goal of producing a complete and accurate map of the human genome within 15 years. The project was led by the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and the Department of Energy, DOE, in the United States and involved collaboration from researchers and institutions around the world. The Human Genome Project had its roots in advances in DNA sequencing technology in the 1970s and 1980s. These advances made it possible to sequence increasingly large fragments of DNA, but the sheer size of the human genome made it a daunting task. Despite this, scientists were eager to take on the challenge and unlock the secrets of the human genome. One of the key objectives of the Human Genome Project was to create a public resource that would be freely available to researchers around the world. This was seen as essential for advancing scientific understanding of the human genome and for ensuring that the benefits of this research were widely distributed. Over the course of the project, researchers made rapid progress in developing new techniques for sequencing DNA and for piecing together the genomic puzzle. In 2000, the Human Genome Project announced that it had completed a rough draft of the human genome, representing a major milestone in the history of science. The completion of the Human Genome Project has had a profound impact on the field of biology and medicine. It has provided a detailed map of the human genome, which has enabled researchers to identify the specific genetic mutations that cause diseases such as cancer and heart disease. This information has paved the way for the development of new drugs and treatments that are tailored to specific genetic mutations, leading to better outcomes for patients.
I could not independently verify if Padtan Elm was involved in the Human Genome Project, but I could verify that Iranome was launched because of it, as Iranian labs with expertise in pathology could contribute directly through shared methodologies, sample repositories, or collaborative networks, despite geopolitical barriers, subsequently paving the way for localized spin-offs like Iranome, a groundbreaking genomic initiative co-led in partnership with the University of Toronto and Illumina, achieved exponential growth and pioneering research into identifying over 1.5 million genetic variants, including more than 308,000 novel ones. Novel meaning new. From the genome sequencing of 800 individuals across 8 major Iranian ethnic groups, enabling transformative advancements in personalized medicine, such as improved molecular diagnostics for rare genetic diseases like thalassemia or muscular dystrophies prevalent in the region, tailored treatments for complex disorders like cardiovascular conditions and cancers through targeted therapies, and pharmacogenomics to predict individual drug responses and minimize adverse effects in underrepresented Middle Eastern populations. This proved pivotal for biotechnology advancements in Iran, placing it 13th in the world for the number of published biotechnology research papers. What is biotechnology?
Biotechnology is a booming industry sector with high demand in many different career pathways. But what is biotechnology?
Probably the easiest way to define it is to break it into its two component parts. Biology is the scientific study of life. Technology is taking knowledge and using it for practical applications. So when you put those two together, what we're doing is using what we've learned from the biological systems, processes that already exist in nature, and then translating that to products or services that can really benefit the world.
Using living cells to create pharmaceutical, agricultural, environmental, and other products to benefit society.
The nice thing about biotechnology is there are many aspects of it. It's a huge umbrella. You can work in agriculture, environmental science, basic research.
So it's not just human health, it's also how we fuel and feed the world.
Hooman claims the clinical trials era of Iranome began in the 90s with his mother's lab and through his sister, Omid. They reached a deal with Zanetti to tie up Zanetti's inventions in court, keeping them from public access and giving them a competitive edge. These patents covered foundational concepts for a universal cancer vaccine, focusing on immunology technologies to elicit targeted T-cell responses against tumor antigens. They stemmed from Zanetti's work on antigenized antibodies and somatic transgene immunization. The patents collectively addressed methods for generating cytotoxic T lymphocyte, CTL responses against cancer cells, particularly by targeting telomerase, reverse transcriptase HTERT, an enzyme overexpressed in approximately 85 to 90% of human cancers that enables tumor cell immortality. While Gerloni versus Zanetti was developing, they advanced critical biotechnologies research, ensuring no competitors got a head start. Leveraging the genetic data for precision cancer immunotherapy, they released them on February 3, 2013, not first ensuring they had transferred all of Padtan Elm's assets to a shell company on January 14, 2013, just 18 days prior. A fresh start, all without informing Hooman. How could they have done this without his consent or authorization? The power of attorney his mother held. This strategic delay enabled Iranome and Padtan Elm to position themselves as the first in the world market with biosimilars by providing essential infrastructure for sample collection, analysis, and data generation, much like how today's vast datasets from cellular devices and web activities. User behavior is tracked via apps like Google or Facebook to enable personalized recommendations.
What is genomic medicine? Genomic medicine uses the information in our DNA to inform and personalize our healthcare. Our DNA contains around 3 billion letters of code. Our genome, the instructions for building our bodies. Almost 99.8% of our DNA is the same for everyone. But in the remaining 0.2%, there are differences that can sometimes be harmful. This is where genomic medicine comes in. In genomic medicine, we can have our DNA analyzed to look for these differences. Clinical scientists, geneticists, computer scientists, and clinicians will study our DNA and compare it to many others to work out if we have differences that might contribute to a disease. Then they can figure out what treatment or intervention will work best. This is genomic medicine in action. The NHS has provided targeted gene testing for patients for decades. But new advances in technology mean that now we can look at the entire genome. Genomics England's vision is to support the NHS to make these latest kinds of genomic testing available to every patient, whilst enabling researchers to continuously improve our understanding of diseases. Right now, we help the NHS analyse the whole genomes of patients with suspected rare diseases and specific cancers. But we're working together to expand this kind of whole genome sequencing to many more cancer patients. And in the future, We hope that this kind of genetic analysis will be used to personalize patient treatment, and in some cases, to prevent disease in the first place. So when we see our doctor, they could tell us what conditions we might be vulnerable to and help us treat them early or even avoid them altogether. We are just beginning our journey with genomic medicine. Our mission at Genomics England is to help scientists and doctors unlock the secrets of our DNA for the benefit of everyone.
Even though that was Genomics England, it does a great job explaining Iranome's contributions to the Middle East and the world, which further benefited biotechnology by enhancing personalized medicine. Iranome's catalog of population-specific variations, absent from global databases like Nomad, is invaluable for worldwide developments. Gene sequencing was very expensive prior to 2000s. Here's a good comparison. The Human Genome Project, to get a better perspective of the significance of Iranome.
DNA is like the recipe for making ourselves, for making any living thing, including humans. And studying that is, to me, more significant than like the moon landing.
Right now, what we have in the world of genomics is every study is based on one genome.
The first human genome that was released in the early 2000s is the foundation, it's the bedrock for almost all biomedical research and clinical genomics and studies of human histories that have happened over the last 2 decades. Yeah, it was a complicated early history of the Human Genome Project where they actually put an ad in a newspaper asking for volunteers to submit blood.
A few people signed up and got the chance, the lifetime dream, to donate DNA for this study.
But just by chance or by luck, one individual was represented about 70% of the time.
Because of that, what we have learned is that it induces a reference bias.
If you have an inadequate reference genome, one that doesn't properly represent differences that exist, it could lead to misdiagnosis, a misunderstanding of what's going on in that patient.
To be truly useful to everyone in the world, we have to have a resource that truly represents everyone.
Well, we just made the first release of a pangenome. We were very careful in the title to say a draft pangenome. This is the first time it's ever been done, so this was a very kind of exciting moment. If you think about the original human genome as just being kind of a line, you can start thinking about the pangenome as being one of these beautiful subway maps. The Human Pangenome Draft contains 47 genomes, or 47 individuals who participated in the study. So by building this new data structure, utilizing all of these different paths, we can begin to trace human haplotypes, human histories, and also shared differences that could be important for understanding how the genome works.
To build a pangenome, you need to sequence as many individuals as possible from a diverse population.
The process of DNA sequencing involves capturing 6.6 billion base pairs of A, C, G, and T from an individual DNA.
And so there's a lot of sources of error just because we're dealing with the physics of a very small molecular level. But we can get around it partly by applying algorithms, or in this case, deep learning.
The software that we have built at Google is Deep Consensus. It improves the quality of the data that you get from the sequencing machine.
Deep Consensus is built on a transformer model, which is a deep learning model that's also at the heart of the large language models.
The sequencing machine reads the same sequence multiple times. As the molecules are very small, some of the reads will still have errors. So we line up the reads against each other, and Deep Consensus tells us what the more accurate answer is.
Working with DNA sequencing data is a great use case for deep learning because we have lots of data and we do have some good ways to get at the truth, which is one of the hardest things when you're doing machine learning. We would not be where we are today without advances in the sequencing technology and advances in the algorithms that go along with them.
Our goal with the pangenome is not only to build hundreds, if not thousands, of near-perfect reference genomes, but to create a resource that's fundamental for research into the future. Without Google's tools, doing that just wouldn't be possible.
I have great hopes that this pangenome can get us to a place where the promise of genomics can benefit everyone.
Now that you understand a little more about genomics, you can truly begin to grasp what Hooman is talking about. You might now understand the magnitude of Iranome to global genomics by sequencing 800 individuals across 8 major Iranian ethnic groups. It filled a major gap in genome-wide. It revolutionized molecular diagnosis by identifying a higher frequency of novel variants, hypothetically elevating Padtan Elm's assets into hundreds of millions or billions via biotech innovations. These articles highlight the value of these technologies in the foreseen future. This is relevant even more today, directly intersecting with AI.
The first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model.
Data, that's the new gold. And Iranome is like the Facebook of genomic data, to process genomic data for predicting risks, optimizing protocols, and simulating interactions, turning repositories like Padtan Elm's through its work in Iranomes into vital tools for precision healthcare, as noted by Gassemi.
By utilizing innovative technologies, especially artificial intelligence, AI, in our clinic, we are fully equipped to evaluate medical records from patients worldwide and offer the best available treatment option. See you then.
Hooman claims that even in the face of geopolitical obstacles, Iranian firms adopt strategic adaptations, including networks of branch offices and shell entities in jurisdictions like the UAE, Turkey, or Canada to facilitate imports, exports, partnerships, and financing amid sanctions in biotechnology. Iranome's University of Toronto partnership exemplifies Creative Commons' role in non-commercial genomic data sharing, bypassing proprietary barriers for ethical global progress without direct monetary exchanges, building on the web of shell companies and the Padtan Elm and Roche connection. Hooman positioned Pt.1 Elm as one such branch or extension of Padtan Elm. He then shared what he presented as a preserved copy of the licensing agreement, a pharmaceutical licensing agreement, dated March 15, 2016, between Pt.1 Elm, based in Zurich, and Roche's sequencing division in Basel. The document detailed Pt.1 Elm granting Roche a license for DNA amplification technology using polymerase to produce millions of copies. Key terms included an upfront fee of approximately $140 million USD at the time, a 42% royalty on net sales, milestone payments, and provisions for exclusivity, regulatory support, and confidentiality. In my own verification efforts, Leonardo Latiello emerged as a legitimate Roche executive in pharma research and early development with a track record in portfolio management and collaborations that fit this context. Elm itself yielded no public records as a registered entity in Zurich, aligning with the opaque nature of such shells. But I couldn't help but note the similarity in the name. It seems almost like an abbreviation of Padtan Elm, Pt.1 Elm. Hooman alleged this arrangement diverted revenues from his stake, channeling them through family-orchestrated entities. These elements, though not definitive proof of a conspiracy, substantially enhanced the plausibility of Hooman's narrative, in my view, revealing a compelling mosaic of synchronized events and coherent patterns of familial exploitation, corporate sleight of hand, and strategic opportunism, where his unique position as a U.S. citizen and co-founder of Padtan Elm facilitated technology transfers to Iran. Amidst increasing 1995 sanctions, they needed him and the tech he facilitated, placing Padtan Elm as essential for Iranome clinical trials, with a 1999 power of attorney to his mother, enabling the alleged 2013 asset transfer to Padtan Teb, as attested by auditor Kianush Boluli's testimony, Razmio profiles, and documented meeting minutes, listing Hooman as a 25% co-founder, explosive market growth from 1997 to 2013, alignments like the Zanetti Gerloni, disputes 22-year span ending just 18 days after the transfer, freeing transgenesis patents tied to multi-million-dollar deals with entities like Roche and Illumina, and cross-verified erasures of Padtan Elm's 2002 to 2023 digital footprint via saved archives and independent searches. Hooman's credibility with his multiple U.S. patents leadership in ventures like HBA, Medical for Device Innovation, and his 2016 $61.5 million verdict in Asbaghi Fnidegger, demonstrating unyielding resilience and skill in high-stakes disputes that prove he's a seasoned professional, capable of substantiating claims. This built my conviction that his story isn't mere fabrication, but a substantiated trail of documents, timelines, and achievements demanding further attention and deeper investigation, especially as 2015 revelations turned everything downright surreal.